Bananas, probably the most common fruit on your kitchen counter. They might seem simple, but behind them lies a story of colonial exploitation, corporate power, and even military intervention. Today, while we make a rich and comforting banoffee pie, let's peel back that history together. If you enjoyed learning with me while we cook, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Banoffee pie is a British dessert, first invented in East Sussex in the 1970s. While there are different versions, the one I'm making today has a buttery graham cracker crust, silky homemade dulce de leche, and a torched meringue topping. It may look elegant and impressive, but its flavors are very nostalgic, reminiscent of the sweet treats so many of us grew up loving. One of the stars of banoffee pie is, of course, the banana. Sweet and versatile, it shows up everywhere, from banana bread to fruit smoothies to an easy snack that comes with its own handle. They're so popular that we eat over 100 billion bananas every year, making them the world's most consumed fruit. They are such a staple of everyday life that you may have never stopped to think, why are bananas so popular? Well, there are the cited health benefits. Bananas are a good source of potassium, which helps to regulate blood pressure and improve muscle function. And they are rich in vitamin B6 and magnesium, which also have benefits for the body. But outside of this, bananas are just incredibly cheap. You can usually pick one up for less than 10 or 20 cents. Compare this to strawberries, which go for $3 or $4 a pound, and bananas seem much more economical. This is because they are easy to grow in tropical climates. Bananas can be grown year-round. Banana trees produce fruit at high volumes relatively quickly after planting, and their naturally thick skin make them ideal for shipping without damage. Also importantly, they can be picked green and then ripened quickly on site, which is convenient for the seller, typically grocery stores that are looking to turn over inventory. But just as important, there are massive multinational corporations behind these operations. In the 1900s, these companies became so large and influential that at one point they were known as banana empires. To understand how things got to that point, we need to go back. Bananas were originally from Southeast Asia, before being introduced to Central America and the Caribbean by Portuguese and Spanish colonizers. The banana trade began in the late 19th century, as coal transport and steamships made it possible to bring them up the northern hemisphere. In the late 19th century, dozens of small banana traders competed to bring fruit from the tropics to the growing US and European markets. But by the early 1900s, competition had given way to consolidation. The most important of these mergers created the United Fruit Company in 1899, formed by the Boston Fruit Company and several others, giving it a near monopoly on Central American bananas. The first thing we need to understand is why multinationals wanted to grow bananas in Central America. Bananas thrive in tropical climates with consistent rainfall. This climate paired with volcanic soil in places like Honduras, Guatemala, and Costa Rica made for near perfect conditions for growing bananas. At the same time, the proximity of Central America to the US also made shipping distances shorter, reducing transport costs. To access these fertile lands, companies negotiated directly with fragile Central American governments for huge concessions. In many of these states, which were newly formed and fragile countries in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, local governments were desperate for foreign investment to kickstart economic development. They willingly handed over land to these companies for the promise of jobs and export growth. Bribes and political support also influenced decision makers. In short order, United Fruit and others like it owned millions of acres of the best farmland in the region, oftentimes left empty simply to prevent competition. They adopted the plantation model, employing thousands of locals at low cost and with brutal conditions, including long hours and exposure to pesticides. To grow and export the bananas, companies had to build infrastructure, including railroads, ports, telecommunications equipment, and transport fleets. But unlike what was promised, this infrastructure only benefited their operations rather than the local people. Rail lines ran straight from the banana plantations to the company-controlled ports, providing little other economic value to the surrounding population. Ships were built to bring cargo straight from Central America to the US and Europe, rather than for regional logistics. And while growing bananas did provide jobs, these jobs paid very little and did not help people advance into higher value sectors with greater earning potential. In contrast, this infrastructure allowed these companies to operate more like state entities, with vast economic resources and control over transportation and communication. With massive financial and capital assets at stake in Central America, United Fruit and other companies became highly ingrained within regional politics. Many interfered under the table, funding candidates that they preferred and bribing officials to get their way. Efforts by local candidates to tax or regulate their activities would be met with threats to withdraw investment and fire workers, moving their operations to somewhere else and taking jobs with them. This relationship was so lopsided that the term banana republic was coined to describe Central American countries where governments were weak, corrupt, and functionally controlled by foreign fruit multinational corporates. In addition to influencing local politics, United Fruit and other multinationals also lobbied their home countries for support. They took advantage of the US's fear of communism and Russian influence to shape US foreign policy in the region. At the time, the US thought of Central America as its backyard and pursued a policy of heavy intervention to remove any sort of perceived threat, whether that was political leaders that it did not like or policies that threatened its business interests. For example, in Guatemala, Jacobo Arbenz became president in 1954 on the back of land inequality. At the time, 2% of the population owned more than 70% of the country's arable land, and United Fruit was the largest landowner in the country. Given a popular mandate, Arbenz passed land reform to redistribute unused land to peasants. Cleverly, he wanted to pay companies for the reported value of the land, which they had been consistently underreporting to avoid tax. Angered by this, United Fruit launched a massive PR campaign to portray Arbenz as a communist aligned with Moscow. The CIA, convinced by this narrative, organized operations that forced Arbenz to resign. He was replaced by the US-backed Colonel Carlos Castillo Armas, who became a military dictator and was eventually responsible for a civil war in Guatemala and more than 200,000 deaths. The civil wars in Central America were a brutal time for the region and deserve a greater explanation than this video can provide. Please let me know in the comments if you would like to learn more about it. While Guatemala was one of the most horrific examples of the tactics of the banana empires, it was by no means the only victim. The US landed in Honduras 7 times between 1903 and 1925 to quell unrest, supported Panama's independence from Colombia to secure the Panama Canal for shipping, and pressured the Costa Rican government to halt labor strikes. This pattern repeated itself during much of the 20th century, until Central American countries finally had enough. Public opinion in the West had also begun to turn against these multinational fruit companies as more of their track record came to light. United Fruit would eventually be rebranded as Chiquita in 1984 to try and start afresh. The top multinationals still dominate the global banana trade today. Although there are issues around wages and weak labor protections, they do not act with the impunity of the previous century. Bananas, however, are now facing a threat from disease. Nearly 100% of bananas exported today are a specific strain called the Cavendish. The banana industry began growing Cavendish bananas due to their immunity to tropical race 1, which had wiped out previous types of bananas. But the Cavendish is now susceptible to a new fungus called tropical race 4, which is uncurable and infects any soil it takes root in for decades. Cavendish bananas are especially vulnerable because they are all clones, meaning they have no genetic diversity. These bananas are also grown as monocultures, where a large piece of land only grows one crop year after year. While efforts are being made to slow its spread and to breed a resistant Cavendish, scientists believe that the global banana industry is at risk of crisis. Food for thought. It can be surprising to imagine so much history involving the basic banana. Unfortunately, this is a more common story within our everyday lives than most would like to believe. We tend to associate corruption and exploitation with luxury items or desirable natural resources like oil or diamonds. But even items that appear ordinary can have complex backgrounds. The humble banana is a reminder that what seems simple is often anything but. What other seemingly everyday item has a complicated history? I'd be interested to learn more in the comments. The recipe to make banoffee pie is in the description. The torched meringue can easily be replaced with whipped cream for a less involved but just as delicious topping. If you like my content, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.